On today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, we'll be bringing in Alex Slemp from Full Press NHL to discuss the Florida Panthers' 4-2 loss at the hands of the New Jersey Devils. We got a whole lot to talk about with these two teams facing off two times in a 5-day span. And we're going to talk about how the Florida Panthers have fared in the third period this season. We're going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, December 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at Monoman12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. And don't forget to submit your screenshot and your 5-star rating of Locked On Panthers, whichever podcast you listen to, for your chance to win 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers versus Vancouver Canucks game on January 14th at FLA Live Arena. So screenshot of your YouTube subscription and 5-star rating on the podcast app you listen to and send it over to at LO_FLA Panthers on Twitter, or email at lockedonflapanthers at gmail.com. So Cats fans, the Florida Panthers, they return home after a quick 2-game road trip against two first place teams, one in the Metro, one in the Atlantic. Well, the Devils did lose their lead in the division after Tuesday facing off against the Carolina Hurricanes. But the Panthers, they had this Devils team on the second end of a back-to-back, coming in late at night, late in the morning, and start with their goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood starting for the first time in over a month. They had their chances. They had a 1-goal lead multiple times, but just couldn't create that separation. And then the Florida Panthers, just a third period collapse, even though they had their chances to extend their lead early in the third period. And just the Panthers, just over and over again, that they just find new and different ways to lose hockey games. And this will be a great time to bring in my guest on the show for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It is Alex Slemp from Full Press NHL. Alex, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to be back, man. Good to be back.
Thank you for being here as always. So let's talk about this game for the Florida Panthers. And lose 4-2. You go 1-0, go up 2-1 as well in the second period. The Eric Stahl line, 8 points in the last 11 games, just multiple chances early. Even the shift before even he scored a goal, that him and Lomberg were just attacking the net, and Lomberg ended up with 3 shots on goal in this game. Not often that you see that amount of shots from Ryan Lomberg, but getting that lead early. But then the Florida Panthers, they just can't get a 2-goal lead, and that's just really continuing to keep teams in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was absolutely it was an opportunity missed last night because they, like you said, they were getting maybe a tired Devils team, and they were all over them in the first and the second, and they couldn't put it away in the third. Like you said, the third has just been an issue for them all season. But yeah, that fourth line, well, I guess the Stahl line is really been going as of late. It's been a line I think that Maurice has been able to rely on a lot. as he's navigating kind of all these different players coming in and out of the lineup, and they've been really good. But yeah, in that game last night, we saw the Devils play. Um, Kind of sloppy again, like we saw when they were playing up in Jersey there. Poor puck management. They were giving pucks away just all night, and the Panthers just couldn't capitalize. There are so many opportunities for Florida to put that game away, and they just couldn't get it done. And I mean, this to me, it's just an opportunity miss going right into the break. You miss 2 points like this. It's a tough loss here.
And giveaways were 9-7 with New Jersey having more giveaways than the Panthers. And also we got to consider that the John Marino didn't play for the New Jersey Devils after getting injured in Carolina. Ryan
Right.
Graves only plays 1 minute and 3 seconds in this game as well.
Hmm.
So the Devils being
Yep.
down to 5 defensemen as well in this one. I mean, the physicality was there early. It went down towards the second period, but even then, Anton Lundell returning to the lineup, so you're getting a little healthier. Alexander Barkov, a little bit more of an update on Alexander Barkov. He's not expected. Him nor Radko Gudas are not expected to play the rest of this week. So early, the expectation should be for the Panthers to have those guys return once the Panthers do resume play against the Montreal Canadiens next week. And then let's also talk about the physicality early. Of course, 5 days apart between these
Mm.
two games. Of course, we've spoken so much about Nico Hischier on that faceoff. Again, it wasn't on purpose, but in this sport, if someone does something reckless, you're and it's that fresh in players' minds, you're gonna have to be ready to get hit. And there Carter Verhaeghe on the pan cam. That was caught by Darren Pang right on ice level about the neutral zone hit that he had. Mark Stahl and Sam Bennett sandwiched Nico Hischier towards the boards uh,
Hmm.
as well. And what do you think about that with it being so fresh 5 days apart?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, this is one of the big reasons, I watch hockey. So I think it couldn't be scripted any better to have their rematch, within a week. So I love the physicality of the game. There's a lot of jump they came out with. Their banging bodies. Love to see it. Like you said, I mean, it was, you can go back and look at it, and you see Hershier's play on that draw. Yeah, we're not going to call it like he's not a dirty player, right? Like
No.
that's but it was, as you said, reckless. And I mean, you got to answer the bell when you do stuff like that, especially when it's against a captain. He's played hockey his whole life. He knew exactly what this game was going to look like. Both teams knew exactly what it was going to be like. And it is nice to get something like this before the Christmas break. I mean, I feel like we haven't seen a lot of, you know, this side of the Panthers, this like just fired up, like want to throw their weight around, like go at a team. So I loved it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch this last night.
Yeah, and then as well with everything that happened after the last goal, the empty netter, and then Matthew Kachuk going after. Uh, I saw a few tweets from Devils Twitter about just what they had to say about Matthew Kachuk, and of course, from a Panthers perspective, I might see it differently if it's on the other side of someone going after a player that I cheer for or I cover, but it's something that was always going to be brewing with like you said, less than a week apart. But also one thing I want to also talk about was how the New Jersey Devils scored so quickly right after Andrew Burnett got a tribute video, which TNT didn't. I didn't know there was a tribute video until I saw it on Twitter. But apparently, it was literally the commercial break after Andrew Burnett got a tribute video, and then the Devils score on the power play. So a little bit of a nice trip for Andrew Burnett coming to his old stomping grounds.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that one's gonna be stinging the home fans there watching that. I know there's been a lot of, while you get around on Twitter, you're seeing a lot of people uh, voicing their opinions over the coaches and coaching change, and I know a lot of people seem to miss Brunette and his style, and they're watching him be successful so far in the early season for the Devils. And he comes back, they throw a tribute, they score, he gets a win. Probably stung quite a bit for a lot of those fans, but good for him though. So he's having a great year.
Yeah, happy for him. And I remember just talking right before the season started of just about the pressure that Lindy Ruff is under this season. The it's funny because the TNT broadcast also showed the Devils fans at the beginning of the season chanting "Fire Lindy" and then saying "Sorry, Lindy," and then
Yeah.
they're on they just ended their 6-game losing skid. Something that we've spoken about. They're maybe right back on track to be in the division race. I mean, they got off to such a great start that I think that this team, that the Devils are still a playoff team and all that. But also for the Panthers, I mean, the goaltending performance on Monday was just horrific for the Panthers. No doubt about that. But
Hmm.
in this one, Bob was just rebound control was there.
Hmm.
His lateral movement was there. The 5-hole was not open. On the second goal, even though it was on a rush, maybe that's one you might want back as it was under the glove
Hmm.
on that goal by Jesper Bratt, the second one, who got two goals on the night. But man, you can't blame Bob for this one.
Oh, absolutely not. No, Bob is actually being dialed in as of late, and I was really surprised he didn't get the start in Boston. There's a lot of, reasons I can see why. Um, Paul Maurice decided to go with Spencer Knight, but to me, the way Bob has been playing, the way that goalies are very streaky players, when you're hot, you got to ride that hot hand, and I think he deserved the start. It would have put him at his seventh consecutive start, but that's not foreign to him. He did that last season in a stretch between January 1st and 15th. He went 6-0-1 in that time. Um, I think you've got to ride Bob while he's hot. He is a $10 million man. The fan base is being like just begging for this guy to find that Vesna form again, and here he is playing that way. And you go into Boston, it's a top team. Yeah, you're shorthanded. Maybe you're chalking it up to like, we're going to lose this anyways. Let's put in Knight to get the rest off. I didn't like that. I think your goalie's hot. Give your team a chance. You would just beat Boston not long ago. I think Bobrovsky deserved that start as much as I think he deserved the start again last night, and he played really well. Aside from that Jesper Bratt goal, when he came down the wing, he would like to have that back, but otherwise, I think he's the Panthers' best player right now.
Hmm. Yeah, and crazy to think that he wasn't doing so hot prior to the Canadian road trip. A really poor start in Calgary a few weeks ago, but ever since that, he's been pretty sharp
Yep.
for the Panthers. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to talk more about this loss for the Florida Panthers, and we're just going to talk about where the Panthers really go from here. But first, we're going to tell you all about Bet Online. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trend for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football, college bowl season, basketball, and hockey. We've got it all at BetOnline. If you love sports podcasts, you can find them at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your sports info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Second segment here on this Thursday, December 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I got Alex Slemp here from Full Press NHL. Alex, I guess a few good things that came out of last night. I mean, the control that Sam Bennett had when he went 1-on-3 on the second goal. I mean, at the time it was for the Florida Panthers to take a 2-1 lead for them. And then Etu Luostarinen hit the spin pass to Etu Luostarinen all alone in the slot to get it past Blackwood. And we haven't even mentioned Mackenzie Blackwood of how great he was in this first game back in over a month. But just the puck control that Sam Bennett had, and Etu Luostarinen is one goal away from tying his career high, and he had 9 and 70 plus games last year, and we're not even 40 games in, and he's about to. And in the preseason, in the training camp, when Paul Maurice spoke about Etu Luostarinen being a top line forward, and the transition to wing. Of course, he had to go back to center for a few shifts uh, on Monday, but still, the way this guy has been able to develop, even though it was a Dale Talent trade from a few years ago in the Vincent Trocheck deal, he's just really developed well into a very reliable player for this Panthers team.
Yeah, I mean, he has really elevated his game this season, and I mean, there's been plenty of opportunity to expand his role with all the injuries and flu and just everything that's going around this locker room. But it is, I don't want to quite say it's surprising because we knew that there's a lot of talent with this kid, but for him to have done it the way he's done it this season, as early as he has, and with what he's had to take on, I will say I'm very surprised by it. He went from being, on the fourth line, young kid. There's still a lot to learn about the game, and now he's being thrust into all these different roles. We see him on the power play, the penalty kill, you shift over to the wing, different line mates. It seems like he just has there's a carousel of different line mates for this guy, and yet he keeps remaining, productive. He's someone that I think is very much has Paul Maurice's trust, where he can throw him in any type of situation, and that's a key guy for the Panthers to have right now. Is they're still trying to get their identity, find their footing in this season. To have a guy as reliable as Eetu Luostarinen having the year he is, like, this is just huge for the club.
Yeah, and there's of course, despite the Panthers just being literally at 500 right now, 15, 15 and 4 for this team. Now they're up to sixth in the division. Buffalo has 2 games in hand with the same amount of points, and just the tear that Tage Thompson is on. But getting off track a little bit. But with the Panthers in that third period, it's just been issues all year. I mean, listen to this. This was their first regulation loss all season when they had the lead going to the third period.
Hmm.
And the Panthers have been pretty good with leads this season. It's mostly really about when the opposition scores first that they've had a hard time winning. Only one game this season that the Panthers have won with the opposition scoring first. This is via hockey reference for for the Panthers. So 1-9-2 exactly when their opposition scores first. But when the Panthers score first, 14-6-2. But when they're leading after the third period, 13-1-2. And look at this. A positive goal differential in a 5 in the first, +5 in the second, but a -9 in the third, Alex. And I was also listening to parts of the radio broadcast as well, and Billy Lindsay pointed out that the Panthers give up the second most third period goals in the NHL. And
Hmm.
look what happened Wednesday night. 3 of them. Of course, we spoke about the Jesper Bratt goal on the Montour turnover in the neutral zone, the redirection as well, and for what it's worth, the empty net goal, which the Panthers, oh my God, when they brought that extra attacker in, had so many chances right in front of the net. Sam Reinhart, especially Ryan Lomberg earlier in that period, which Mackenzie Blackwood was just flashing the glove
Hmm.
over and over again, and the advanced stats say that the Panthers are just getting their chances and the goal save above expected for Mackenzie Blackwood. But the reality is they're just the pucks aren't going in for the Panthers. But a -9
Hmm.
in the third period, it's just overall frustrating for this team.
Oh, absolutely, and I know that you're not a big fan of those goals above expected stats. So, but it's true. I mean, you either score or you don't. Yeah, we are seeing the Panthers get their looks, get their chances. They're a very good team in the first and second period. They generate a lot of offense, and it seems like perhaps they're gassing themselves when the third period comes. They have had to play with short benches, and I mean, I feel like I'm just repeating myself, guys in and out of the lineup, but it does take a toll. It really does. And when you're trying to play such a high octane offense, in those first 2 periods, you're gassing yourself by the third, and teams look like they're just taking advantage of that. Once again, yeah, here the Panthers are running into a goalie that just stands on their head. An incredible performance from Blackwood, as you said, coming back from a pretty serious injury, and just looks lights out. Looks like he hasn't even missed a step. Uh, this Panthers team really needs to figure out what they're doing in the third, and what they're doing with this offense. They've got this idea to be high volume, that the play starts off the shot, try and make things happen. That's all good and everything if you score. They aren't finishing. That's the issue. We can overlook them getting a little bit gas in the third if they're making the most of these opportunities that they create for themselves in the first and the second. The problem is they're not. So it's tough sledding for this team right now, and they've got a break coming up, and they really have to figure it out coming into the second half of the season, because you look at that Eastern Conference, and they're going to have to leapfrog a couple teams, but you look at who's in right now, and of the clubs that are there, who can they push out? Right? I mean, those are all playoff caliber teams. It is not going to be easy to unseed one of those teams are sitting in a playoff position right now. So there's a lot of work ahead of them. Panthers need to find a way to be able to put some things together and go on a run come the second half if they want any chance of playing in the playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I'm looking at this right now from Natural Stat Trick. I mean, Corsi for percentage is in favor of the Panthers, 65-49 on 5-on-5, and even and the amount of times that they're trying to attempt shots of their shooting lanes are blocked. I mean, the Devils last night, 27 block shots for you're just not going to you're just not going to win a lot of hockey games when the puck is deflecting away from the net, or you're not getting, or you're shooting around the perimeter so many times for the Panthers,
Mm-hmm.
even though they had their chances up front as well. But just the 27 block shots as well. And I like that you mentioned the roster crunch with the cap, and then injured players along the way as well, because even regardless of the players who are on LTIR right now with Anthony Duclair and Patrick Hornquist, and whether they're playing with 20 players with them being healthy, or placed on LTIR with those 23, I mean, the players are the players at times. I mean, the having to play with one less forward and then double shifting as well so many times. And we rarely saw this last year. A few times we've seen 11F7D for the Panthers, but nothing like this that we've seen. That just the and it's just something that, of course, we have to mention Aaron Ekblad's injury from earlier this season as well. And listen, it's just, it's not like magically Aaron Ekblad's injury is just gonna just heal like that. It's a groin strain, and
Yeah,
you're
that's
and you're still playing through that too. And uh, even though the performance is still not there for Aaron Ekblad, I mean, he had a few chances. He actually led the Panthers in shots
yeah.
on goal last night. I mean, still the Panthers are gas going into that third period. And I think that's a big. I really, now that I think about it, that I think that's a really good reason of why these third period leads are are not third period leads, but their third period is just like they're just finding a hard time just putting things together in that period.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I want to be cautious with, really being critical of this team right now because of, the first half that they have had. There's only a lot of different factors that have come into this. I wrote a piece on it the other day. We got to understand that you bring in a new coach with a new system. There is a big learning curve that comes with it, and it becomes that much more difficult when you can't even keep your players in the lineup to learn this system. And then you got guys going in and out, injuries, flu bug, all these kind of things. The fact that the Panthers are at 500, they're keeping their head above water despite everything that's happened. I mean, that's a testament in itself to, I think, how good this team is. There's a lot of good players on this roster, and I'm really excited to see it when they're fully healthy. I think we've only seen it 6 times this year with a full healthy roster, and they went 4-1-1. This so I don't want to dog on them too much because I still think they're a really good team. They just need everyone back. They can't get that. Now, at the end of the day, I mean, you're only as good as your roster is. So if they can't just sit there and be like, "Oh, let's wait till the guys come back," because it might not happen. They may deal with this injury and whatnot throughout the rest of the year. So I mean, they got to figure out a way to do it with who they have, who they're icing night after night. But there's enough good things there Marisa said this. You're seeing enough good things in the analytics, which I don't like to get too hard on, but you're seeing enough to be like, okay, they're a good team. They just have to bring it all together. The pieces are there. This would be a lot different if they were getting blown out every game, or they just can't create any chances. And you're like, no, this is a team that, they don't have the offense. They can't get leads. There's no way for them to, get 1, 2, 3 goal leads on teams. But this team can. They absolutely can. Um, but I mean, like, I guess we're just gonna have to see what they're able to do coming out of this break. Maybe they get a little healthy, put the roster together, and maybe we see this team go on a big run. St. Louis did it when they had their big cup run, went from last all the way to playoff position and won the cup. There is absolutely no reason why the Panthers can't do the same. I think they've got the bones, the foundation is there. It's just about getting everyone back and on track and putting all the pieces together.
Absolutely, and I actually want to touch more on what you say uh, about about the Panthers and blown out versus close games. I think that's a good that's a good way to segue into segment number three, to talk a little bit more philosophically about that. But we're gonna talk about that in segment number three. But guys, it's time to get a little serious when it comes to the holiday seasons. But did you know that driving under the influence of marijuana is illegal? That's right. Driving high could get you a DUI. If you're wondering if law enforcement can tell when you're driving high, well, everyone else in your life can. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, even your parents can tell. So what makes you think law enforcement can't tell? Well, they can. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by the NHTSA. Third and final segment here on this Thursday, December 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I got Alex Slemp here from Full Press NHL. And Alex, I want to go back to what you said in the previous segment about not getting blown out, or the Panthers not blowing the other teams out. Rarely we've seen this season. I mean, Monday was an exception against the Boston Bruins. We we've we we spoke about like grinded out type of games. I mean, these are grinded out type of games. It's just not resulting in wins. I mean, the -2 goal differential for the Panthers on the season kind of says, and right at 500, yes, mediocrity right now for the Panthers, but it's still a team that's still fighting every single night. It's not a team that just, even though the body language at times is not the best, but the fact that even even sometimes with 2 goal deficits, like in the second or third period, they're still cutting it close. And it's just not a team that's just not completely off the foot off the gas. They might be gassed sometimes when it gets down to the third period, but still these games are fairly close for the most part, and that they're still, and just the talent as well, regardless of what coach you bring in. Of course, the turnover has a lot to do with it too, and it's a little difficult when from last season and then this season, but still, I like what you said about this team still always in games. We're five when it comes, and I think about the 5 minute mark of the final period. Most times this season we're not here just saying, okay, this is already a loss. We can already, you can already start your article, and I can already start prepping for my show. But no,
Yeah.
it's not like that. It's always at least until the almost near the final buzzer this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going into any game being like, all right, let's chalk it up to a loss. The Panthers have chances in every game that they're playing. They're built that way. They're a good team. They can compete with any single team in this league on any given night, and they're showing that. Um, I think there's something that Matthew Kachuk said at the beginning of the year, and you remember the vibe and the energy around this team to start the year. There's a lot of excitement. You're coming off of that incredible season. Yeah, you just had. You got a few new phases in here. Obviously, bringing in a guy like Kachuk had everyone excited, and there was some really good feeling around that dressing room. The thing is that feeling, I find it's still there. Like, despite not getting the results, these guys have done a really good job staying strong mentally and keeping that belief in themselves that they're a good team and can do this. Now, something I meant to say earlier with Kachuk was he said that good teams don't lose two in a row. And he said that I believe it was in the first week of the season. And um, I mean, that's a lot of pressure, I think, to put on the team to not do that. 5 times this year, we have seen the Panthers have string together consecutive losses, whether that was two games or 3 games. So, I mean, they have not, quote unquote, looked like a good team according to Kachuk on that quote he had. But they are still a good team, and despite having these back-to-back losses and letting games slip away from them, they have. It seems that the mentality in the locker room that they have that they still believe in themselves, and I think that's the biggest thing. Sports, professional sports, is such a mental thing, and so for them to be able to still come in, go into that locker room, hit the ice with the belief that they can win, that they're still a top team and can do this, that is going to go a long way on whether or not this team is going to be able to compete for a playoff spot in the second half of the year.
Yeah, and when once you mentioned a few losses in a row, we have not seen a 4 game losing streak for the Panthers this season, but we also have not seen a 3 game winning streak for the Panthers all season too. I mean,
Right.
even in the 3 game losing streak in late November, in mid November between the home game against the Stars, shootout loss versus Calgary, and then that game against Columbus where the Panthers just threw a lot of muffins on Daniil Tarasov in that one. You 1 point in 6 games. Okay, not all of them are regulation loss, and I know that's not what fans want to hear about that. But then you also think about the in just later, just not even a week later against St. Louis, Edmonton, and Calgary. Of two of those games, you blow leads late in the third period. Spencer Knight was incredible in Edmonton on that first night of a back to back, and then when we even mentioned the Calgary game on the road earlier, where Sergei Bobrovsky was just god awful in that one. So it's still it's just consistent signs of just the up and down of the up and downs that's just been continuing for this Florida Panthers team. But we I noticed that when the Panthers have gone down, they haven't been down for too long. I mean,
Hmm.
even the opposition. I mean, they were down for pretty long with 6 games in a row lost. But I haven't seen that. We haven't seen that with the Panthers, which is great. But still, when you're dropping points, even when you're getting one, how many overtime losses are the Panthers at now? They're at 4. They're at 4, but still a few blown leads here and there where you had a chance to even salvage 1 point as well. It's just right now losing track, but still, you mentioned the whole St. Louis Blues from just 2019, and let's also remind the fans last year. This was before the holiday break last year too. The Panthers were playing not so well, and of course, the Omicron variant of COVID had a lot to do with it, and of people being out. But then once that holiday break happened, and I know there's a new coaching staff, I know there's a lot of turnover as well. But what 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 makes us think that they can't once they can't go on a tear once the players not only get some physical rest
Hmm.
but mental rest as well, because they get a little bit of a break. And
Hmm.
just these next 2 games, even though they're 6 days apart, they're still getting 2 teams on the second end of a back-to-back. Sorokin is likely going to start 2 games in a row with Varlamov being hurt. The Panthers are welcoming the Montreal Canadiens on the second end of a back-to-back as well. I mean, the Panthers will have a back-to-back there. They'll be going to Carolina the next day as well, which
Hmm.
the Panthers beat the Canes earlier this season. Still a chance to make something happen, but it's just there's got to be some urgency.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think the Panthers can afford to really be any worse the rest of the way. They're going to have to find a way to go on a bit of a run. But when I say bit of a run, I'm not talking like you need to get like 10 straight wins, right? This team, based like historically on points percentage, could go the rest of the season. Like you said, the Panthers don't have a 3 game winning streak. They historically wouldn't need to even get a 3 game winning streak the rest of the season to make playoffs. If they were to go 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 wins, 1 loss, going 66 the rest of the way, they would have enough points to be able to make the playoffs historically. But what you mentioned with how the Panthers aren't going on too many long losing streaks, right? Like they're able to stop the bleeding. That is a really good sign. And I think what we see with this team, that this is their floor. Like when I go in and watch a game, they can't be any worse than what they're doing. And I think that's a really good thing. If your floor is 500 hockey, that's great because I don't think they're going to get any worse than this. But they have all the opportunity to be a lot better. And going into the games outside the Christmas or after the Christmas break, it's a brand new season, right? Ekblad has talked about this, how the season is split into kind of like four different seasons, and one of those is coming out of the Christmas break. It's a full week reset, like you said, body, mental. It changes things. It's almost like
Yeah.
you get a fresh start this brand new year. So I'm excited to see what the Panthers do in the second half. Um, yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna be looking at a completely different team.
Hmm. And of course, we there's opportunities as well to evaluate if the Panthers are still playing the way they are after it. Then of course we're gonna have a few different things to say. But of course, Friday, Islanders 4 points ahead of the Panthers right now. And that's their last matchup against the Islanders this season. I mean, you were able to get two of them, and Carolina always tough. New York, who when Igor Shesterkin is not playing to Vesna caliber form, you see the flaws with the offense of the New York Rangers, and then of course a
Big time.
rebuilding Yotes team for as well. Who, even though the Panthers lost to them earlier this season, so great opportunity as well in those in some of them as we can consider them swing games as well for the Panthers. And then of course, like you said, if this is the floor of the Panthers, then hopefully good days are ahead for this team, hopefully. But
Yeah,
Alex, I want to thank you once again for joining me on this Thursday episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, recapping this 4-2 loss for the Cats against the Devils. Thank you once again, as always, for coming on, and let everybody know where they can follow you online.
yeah. Thanks, man. Always fun to be here. So thanks for having me back. You can get my stuff over at fullpresshockey.com. I've got all my articles for the Panthers there. If you like to follow some other teams, you can get your fix on that site there. On Twitter, it's as you see at the bottom there, Alex Slemp. Do a lot of live tweeting during the games and posting up my articles on there as well. So that's where you can catch me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex, and hope to have you on back soon.
Looking forward to it. Have a good Christmas, man.
You too. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On AHL network, including Locked On AHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And after you listen to today's episode of Locked On Panthers, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis, opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today is available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.